Welcome to another episode of Your Technologically Inept Foods Teacher, here to teach you about Mrs. K's banana bread recipes. So this is what we're going to be doing today. The recipe is going to be included on your Google Classroom with some of the tips that I'm about to give you in the video. So just a few reminders. We need to grease our loaf pan to make our banana bread today. Your recipe is going to yield 1 loaf of banana bread. I'm doubling this, so I'm going to get 2 loaves today. I want to talk to you about pan preparation, and checking for doneness is of course always with a toothpick. Now if you don't have a loaf pan at home, you can always use muffin tins lined with muffin liners. Now keep in mind you want to fill those 2/3 full. And the baking time is going to be probably somewhere between 15 to 20 minutes depending on how full you fill your muffins, and the same method of checking for doneness is always going to be that toothpick method. Now, I have my oven here preheated to 325. In your recipe, you're going to use 350. Now, if you're using a Pyrex dish, these dishes tend to get hotter, so it's always a good idea if you're baking a cake to lessen the degrees by 25. If you're using Pyrex. So that's why I'm using 325. If you're using a metal tin, you're going to use 350, or if you're using muffin tin, still use 350, okay? So what I have here is I have a loaf pan, 2 loaf pans, and I want to grease and flour these. Now greasing and flouring simply means I've already greased them. Flouring is just simply adding a little flour into the pan itself, tapping the flour around the pan, and basically what we're doing is we're creating a barrier so that your muffin or your loaf isn't actually going to stick to the pan, okay? So the first thing that you always do is you make sure that your pans are prepped and that your oven is preheated before you go on to the fun part of baking. So I'm going to make sure both pans are prepped for myself. Now you can tap the flour out over the garbage, is a good idea, or over the sink. I did the first one over another muffin or over another tin, knowing that I'm going to have 2 loaves, and then just tap out any excess. You don't want a whole bunch of excess flour, so they're nicely greased and floured. All right, so what I have here, because my recipe is doubled, I have 6 mashed bananas. Now, my helper here, Olivia, give him a wave, Olivia, is going to pass me 1 egg. May I have an egg? Scalpel. Okay. I'm going to crack 1 egg, and I'm going to need another egg because mine is doubled, so we're going to need 2 eggs. So this is going into my wet ingredient bowl. You simply combine your wet ingredients together. Excellent, Olivia. Now, it's 1 cup of flour per recipe, so mine is calling for 2 cups of flour. I'm going to choose to use sugar, slightly less sugar. So Olivia, I'm going to need 3 of those full. So Olivia's going to do 1. Get it in there. Oh, the dig.
This big?
Oh, a little more. Can I help you?
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, and then I'm just going to level it off a bit so that's nice and even. Okay, 1 more. Woo! Okay, and then 1 more. Dig it in, dig it in, dig it in. Oh, a little bit more. We got to have it fully full. There we go.
Final.
Excellent. And I'm going to just add in a half. It says 2 cups. I usually use a little less sugar because it is pretty sweet, especially if you're adding chocolate chips at the end. So we're going to put our sugar in with our wet ingredients. The other thing we need, it's 1/3 cup of oil per recipe. So I'm using 2/3 because I have it doubled, but you will use 1/3 if you're doing a single loaf. What if you don't have oil at home? What else can you use? You can use margarine, you can melt margarine, you could use butter, you can melt butter. You just want fat in its liquid form when we're combining these things together. Okay, so my trusty and handy helper here, Olivia, is going to hold the bowl with 1 hand.
Okay.
And she's going to hold the electric mixer with
What?
1 hand. And we're going to put this on low speed. No, low speed. Sorry. Okay. And we're just going to gently combine. We don't have to do a lot of mixing, just gently combining our wet ingredients. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to add our flour into this. Okay, let's see if we have a sifter here. I mean, if you don't have a sifter at home, you don't need to sift it in. It's not going to do it's not going to have huge impact. So Olivia, hold this for me.
What is a sifter for?
A sift, oh, this is an excellent question. A very good learning question here. So we're going to be using 3 cups of flour. I'm using 3 cups because I'm doing doubled, but if you're doing a single recipe, it's 1.5 cups. So it's actually, I find it easier to, and I level it using the side of my container here. It's actually, I like using 1/2 cup 6 times, personally, if I'm doing. So Olivia's going to start to give it a shake, like when you dance. Shake it. Shake it, shake it, shake it, shake it.
Shake your booty like Elvis.
Hey, don't say that. That's inappropriate.
I think.
Elvis, shake your booty.
Okay, so that's six 1/2 cups, or sorry, it's 3 cups of flour in total. You shake it. So what does sifting do, Olivia? To answer your question, sifting adds air into your product. It helps those little flour balls be kind of sifted out, making sure everything is nice and even.
There's too much flour.
Oh, right now it does look like there's too much flour. It looks like there's a little Mount Everest inside of our bowl, as you can see.
It looks like
Okay. So the leavening agent that we're using today, you're going to need your measuring spoons. We're going to use 5 mils. So that is a teaspoon of our leavening agent, which is baking powder. Now baking powder is a base, so sodium bicarbonate, which means it needs an acid in the recipe to become activated. So the acid in our recipe, Olivia, today, this is science, is bananas. So bananas are really acidic, and they're going to help us to activate the leavening powers of baking soda. Now I've got mine doubled, so again I'm using 2, but you'll be using 1 teaspoon of your baking soda. So baking soda is a base, okay? All right, so we've got that. Now in terms of salt, how much salt does this recipe say? I think I'm gonna use 2 mils of salt. You don't need a lot of salt. Sometimes I just twist it in by eye or do a couple of pinches, which will be fine. Okay, so there's a little bit of salt there. Now cinnamon is always an option. If you hate cinnamon, you don't have to put cinnamon in. It doesn't affect structure at all. It's just for flavor. I'm gonna put in a little bit just because I like it. And one ingredient that Madame I forgot to add, that's okay, into my liquids, it really doesn't matter. Again, vanilla is actually also an acid and can activate your leavening agent. So I am gonna just put a little capful of vanilla, actually 2 capfuls of vanilla. I just love vanilla.
Yes.
Yeah, it makes your house smell good, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yup. All right. Okay, Madame Olivia. Again. Hold the bowl with your other hand. There you go. All right, so we want to mix it. We don't want it to be smooth. We want it to be combined and moist, right? We don't want it to be over-mixed. Now, is this a true, like, muffin method? No, it's more like a cake method. All right, so it's mixed. Now I'm just gonna get this extra out of my batter, out of my beaters here. Now I'm gonna get my trusty rubber spatula and mix this together.
Can I do?
Oh, Olivia, she would like to do it. Excellent. Just give it a good mix. Make sure that there's no flour on the sides. Now, I mean, you could use chocolate chips. My husband doesn't like chocolate chips. He's more of a raisin kind of guy. But knowing my students, they hate the raisins. You could use any dried fruit. Cranberries. You could use nuts, walnuts, whatever you like.
M&Ms?
I'm going to use, you could put M&Ms. That's a good one, Lucas. My son here is doing his math homework, and he suggests M&Ms. It's not a bad suggestion, especially.
Well, it's amazing.
It's an amazing suggestion. All right, so let's see where Olivia's at. We like the chocolate chips in this family. Well, my kids and I do anyway. So I put in 1.5 cups. I mean, that's quite a bit, I'd say. All right, so we've got a nice consistent batter. We've got nicely stirred in chocolate chips. We're going to put these evenly into 2 loaf pans. You want to make sure when you place your pans in the middle rack of your oven that they're not touching, because 2 pieces of metal touching creates a hot spot, and your baked product will burn in that spot or overcook in that spot. So make sure that there's 1 inch to 2 inches of space between 2 pans so that you have even air circulation around the pans for even cooking. And make sure the amount of batter in each pan, should you be using more than one, is equal. Now, if you're using muffin tins, make sure, if not all of the tins are full, that any empty tins have a small amount of water so that all your muffins cook evenly. So, we'll come back to you when we've got 2 beautiful loaves of banana bread done. We're back. with the next portion of our episode about banana bread. So my timer's gone off. I'm going to open my oven. I'm gonna give, oh, look at them. They look golden brown, delicious, smelling sweet. We're gonna use a skewer to check if they're done. It's coming out clean. A little bit of chocolate on there, that's okay. 2 oven mitts, as you see, for safety. And I'm gonna take my banana breads out, and you're gonna cool them probably for about 20 minutes in the pan. But then you wanna run a knife along the edges after 20 minutes of cooling, and I usually lay them on their sides until they're completely cooled before you wrap them. You never wanna put a baked good inside of a sealed container while they're hot, otherwise condensation will be produced, and then they'll get a gummy surface on the outside. So you always want to make sure that any baked good that you plan to store is completely cooled. And you never want to let a banana bread sit inside of a pan for a long period of time, or let it fully cool, because it will make the interior of the bread gummy as well. So give it about 20 minutes to cool in the pan. Then run a knife along the edges. It should pop out beautifully because you greased it and floured it, and then let it cool on its side. Once it's completely cooled, wrap it up. Okay.
And then on the next day you can eat it.
On the next day you can eat it. That's right.
And
until next time, until my next episode, take care. Be safe.